people want to know where her sister is.
This is all about boundaries today.
Mm-hmm. She literally said she wished she was dead.
Sorry, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because that's awful. Because sometimes people said they're setting boundaries and they're really just being controlling.
I will pick up my phone and scroll in your face, which is probably rude, but I do.
Probably. This is Sistas Declassified, the podcast where
Taylor
and Taryn,
your virtual sisters, share experiences, insights, and of course the juicy secrets that never leave the sister circle.
From navigating the millennial rat race to untangling the complexities of relationships.
We've got you, sis.
So shh, listen up. The Declassified convos are starting now.
Yes, welcome back to episode 5. Whoop, whoop, whoop. All right.
We thought we'd start this episode a little bit differently with some stories from the internet. And maybe one day we'll have some stories from you. But this is all about boundaries today.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how to set boundaries? How do you make sure people respect your boundaries? Or also, do you respect other people's boundaries? And what they need in order to feel comfortable in your presence and whatnot.
We'll get into defining what a boundary actually is, because sometimes people said they're setting boundaries and they're really just being controlling. We'll get into that in a second. But let's start with the tea from the internet.
I'm going to do a few Am I the Assholes? Are you ready for this? You have the first one.
Oh, right. So we'll start with our first one from the internet. This Am I the Asshole, is about a sister who told her sister something that you might consider not so nice. Okay, so am I the asshole? I say I look better than her and stay active because she doesn't. I spend my money to get skincare and my hair done. She does not. She doesn't dress nicely either. She always shows up in sweats, even going somewhere nice. Overall, I just look better than her. And if I tell a story and something turns out good for me, doesn't matter what it is, she will tell me it's because I'm pretty. Now, I just passed my test to get my license for my job, and I passed. Mm-hmm. And she said, again, that it was because I was pretty, which makes no sense. So I told her I had enough, and I told her to stop saying I have pretty privilege, and that it's her fault that she looks ugly, not mine. She left the table calling me a cunt. So who is the asshole here? Who is in the wrong? The sister who takes care of her skincare and puts money towards her appearance, mm-hmm. or the sister who doesn't?
Well, I mean, it's tricky. I think they're both the asshole. Is what it sounds like. Like one sister's just insecure, and so because of that, she thinks like, oh, my sister's so pretty, so she gets everything. And I do think pretty privilege exists.
Definitely.
But I don't think it's fair to equate all your sister's successes to her beauty.
Right. I mean, it doesn't say what she does for work, mm-hmm. but I imagine that the job is at least on the up and up enough that they wouldn't be giving someone a license that they're going to be liable for just because they're cute.
Yeah. Now, I don't think her delivery was wrong, though. She definitely has to set a boundary, because how many times are you going to belittle my achievements mm-hmm. by telling me I didn't work for them? Like I was just born with pretty attributes that allow me to get whatever I want.
Yeah. Because it definitely, to your point about the insecurity, like that's obvious. Mm-hmm. People who are confident and feel good about themselves also take care of themselves. So those things kind of go hand in hand. So you'd think that she would see that in her sister a little bit to have some empathy, but mm-hmm. I get like if you keep poking me and almost implying that I'm kind of worthless mm-hmm. outside of how I look, that eventually you'll explode.
Yeah, because it's like maybe the energy you carry is the reason that you don't succeed at anything. Yeah, you're going into it already thinking, I guess they see me as ugly, so.
Yeah, I would say these sisters might not have the best communication.
Definitely not.
But you let us know. Who's the asshole?
Who's the asshole there? I don't know. I can't decide.
Should we do another one?
I think so.
Okay. You want to do the next one?
Yeah. And I'm not going to read mine. It's a little long, so I'm just going to kind of paraphrase. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. So basically, we have two sisters here. They're half sisters, about 10 years apart, roughly. It's more like 8 or 9. And they have never gotten along because, unfortunately, the older sibling wasn't really feeling her mom remarrying to the younger sibling's parent. And with that, the older sibling decided that at every turn, basically, they were going to belittle their younger sibling, say they're not their sibling, say that they're no good, would go to other family members and be like, yeah, my mom is my sibling, but I'm sorry, my mom is my family, but my that girl over there and that man, I don't know them. Those aren't my sibling. That's not my family.
Yikes.
Goes on to share a story about the mom and the stepdad getting pregnant, and they were going to have another sibling, a younger brother, and he was born stillbirth. I'm sorry, he was born still. And the older sibling said, good. I wish that is what would have happened to you when you were born. And
sorry, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because that's awful.
And proceeds to also say, or mom aborted you. Something along those lines. So now we're fast forwarding into adulthood, right? They've had all these little encounters where the sister's basically the older sister's not nice to the younger sister. And now the older sister's getting married. And people want to know where her sister is. Why doesn't your sister ever come around? Mm-hmm. Why isn't she going to be in the wedding? Is she going to be your maid of honor? All that good stuff. And so now she's like running back to the younger sister like, hey, I need you to be in my wedding. I want you to come and make me look good. And the younger sister's like, no. She said over the last 7 years that they had not spoken but 3 times. And that was on times when they ran into each other at some sort of family event. But otherwise, this is the first time she's talking to her. And she even pulled up to her house to make this request for her to be in her wedding.
So she was serious about it. She really wants her to be in her wedding for whatever reason, but it's obviously not about their relationship or their bond.
So do you think the younger sister is the asshole for not participating in this wedding? She said no.
I mean, it sounds like on one hand, like it could seem a little petty, right? This is the olive branch you've been waiting for. Mm. I don't think that's how I would look at it. I think at that point, after 7 years, well, a lifetime, but 7 years of adulthood of us not having a relationship and you like actively avoiding me at gatherings or whatever.
She literally said she wished she was dead.
Yeah, there's nothing for us to talk about.
At least not without an apology. You can't come and ask me for something first. Like, what?
Yeah, it's like first the audacity to even ask me for anything, but to come to me and not have acknowledged the years of hurt you've put on me, unacceptable. Wouldn't work. It'd be a no. And if that ruins your wedding,
and addition to that, their mom wants her to be a part of the wedding. She told her, the younger sister, she needs to say yes.
And see, I have questions for mom, because there's no way that these conversations, these interactions in childhood didn't lead to tears. Mm-hmm. It seems unlikely that the mom is unaware of the tumultuous relationship or the rejection that the older sibling is, showing towards the younger one. And that's not to say that we don't know if the mom ever tried, right? But
I'm sure at some sort of mom guilt, right?
Yeah, for the older sibling, are you protecting one child at the expense of the other? Mm-hmm. And it seems like mom picked a side in this one.
Yeah. If that was you,
you saying we wouldn't be doing this podcast?
I would not be at that wedding. That's for sure.
That wedding.
I don't know. But yeah, so
I just heard like Loretta Devine's voice at that wedding. I don't know.
You're imagining stuff, but yeah, I don't think she's the asshole at all. I think she's protecting her peace. She's not about to go and do like being in a wedding or going to a wedding is a lot of effort.
You would know.
So yeah, I would not be there. Mm-mm.
No. That's where we sit. We seem to be in agreement again on this one. So
let us know what you think. Right. Would you go to the wedding? Would you? I'd be the one to stand up now. What is it? Forever hold your peace.
I speak now, forever hold your peace.
You want me to be there? Bet.
This is my time to air you out. No, that would be awful. Now that's vindictive. I think not showing up is revenge enough.
No, yeah, no, I'm joking, but she might have deserved it. All right, and we have one last "Am I the asshole?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's on your phone also.
Oh, right. Okay, so I was like, it is. This one we also won't read. It's kind of long, so we'll give you the gist of it.
Yeah.
So in this case, we have a brother and sister. The brother and his wife are looking to adopt for whatever reason. I think she said the brother described it as like using their money to pay for someone to have a smooth pregnancy in exchange for them receiving the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And they like pay for stuff for, I guess, for the recovery from the pregnancy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this didn't sit totally right with the sister, who was a young mom herself. I think she said she had a child at 17.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't have any financial troubles because her family, took care of them. They're pretty well off. And in getting to know the young woman who was carrying the baby, the sister began to develop a relationship with her and just learned that the real reason she was giving up the baby was because she felt like she couldn't afford it. And that really just broke the sister's heart. And she took it upon herself to offer to pay for everything for the young lady and for like the pregnancy process. Yeah. After the process, she even offered to pay for her to go to vocational school. She just felt really bad for her. Like, if the only reason you don't want to have this child is because you think you can't give it the life you think it deserves, I'm going to help you do that because I guess like I've been in your shoes and that was done for me. Fast forward, the young lady takes her up on her offer. She rescinds the whole adoption process. And now she's got her brother and her sister-in-law banging on her door. Like, what the hell?
You just lost
our baby. So
it's not funny. That's really sad.
It's a wild story. And I kind of see, well, I won't say I see both sides because I understand the empathy that the sister had for the young lady. Totally.
Yeah. So I guess first question, okay. Is she the asshole?
Is she the asshole? For the sake of the game, yes. Like if I had to choose a category,
or is she like an angelic angel?
Is she an angel?
Because
you think the brother is the asshole, but I feel like we didn't get enough context.
I don't think he is off like just being a person who wants to have a baby.
Right.
But I think that, I don't know. I have an issue with adoption these days. Well, not these days, but in general.
Okay.
Obviously, I think that for people who genuinely have a reason for not wanting their child that has to do with their ability to raise them well or with love, I would say, okay. Or like if you,
right,
unfortunately got assaulted or something and that's the reason why you have a child, then okay, I get why you would want to put those babies up for adoption. But like you're saying, these people who, for whatever reason maybe did get pregnant but would keep their child if they could afford to keep their child,
right, if it felt like an option,
yeah, then that's where I'm like, why don't we have anything that helps them more? Which obviously we do.
Agree.
We kind of do in the quote unquote systems for like low income, but like we know about those and we know that they are
not sufficient
for our systems that we live in. But yeah, I don't know. I think she is for offering it without telling her brother. Maybe they didn't indicate whether like like you don't have that conversation without being like, hey, I
was talking to the young lady and she's having here's her concerns and here's my concerns.
Yeah. And so if we're thinking about boundaries, right? Like what would you definitely overstepped a boundary by
absolutely
offering your brother's, I don't even know what she is.
Biological mother.
Yeah. The biological mother of your whatever niece or nephews. Yeah. An opportunity to not engage in this adoption. That's pretty bad.
I imagine they'd have some sort of contractual agreement, and so
they can back out until
again, I think those contracts are often made under duress, but
yeah,
by that I just mean there was a clearly delineated process happening, so that there was an agreed upon situation on both sides. And so you stepping in the middle of their contract, you had to know that there was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the boundary you crossed. 2 people had an agreement, or 3 people had an agreement, and you inserted yourself.
Right. Or how do you support your brother in being like, hey, she kind of does want this baby, so how can we make it so that she's at least involved in this life? There's so many other ways you could have like made sure that she felt better about the situation besides being like, hey, I'm gonna provide for your whole life.
Yeah, I'm gonna blow up the whole situation.
Yeah.
I think the other piece is taking a step back to realize maybe her own personal triggers.
Right.
Because the way the story started, it was like she was triggered by how her brother was talking about the circumstances and like talking about the situation.
Got it.
And so I think part of her reaction to that was like, I don't like how my brother is talking about how this the transaction of adoption and like that doesn't sit right with me as someone who maybe considered adoption or, and so I think I would challenge maybe her motives a little bit.
I think it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning when we were going to talk about boundaries. Are you setting boundaries or are you trying to control the situation?
And this felt a little bit like controlling the situation. And as a empath, I get it. And as someone who has seen, teens get pregnant, like at work, like I get it. I get the empathy you'd have for them. And if I had the means to support somebody I knew, awesome. But her brother had found the means to support them in a different way and in a way that also benefited him. And it felt like that was what she had a problem with a little bit.
Maybe. I don't know. We don't know these people, so we could just speculate, but let us know what you think. Who's the asshole in that situation? Because I don't know. Everybody kind of is.
I think you were right. Without conversation with your brother, you messed up. You messed up by making a new arrangement with this person.
Yeah. And obviously maybe it came out like word vomit, like they were in the conversation and in the moment, but I don't know.
I also didn't get much like guilt or remorse from the story read either.
Like I feel so bad for them losing this opportunity.
Yeah, it didn't seem like she felt bad that her brother was losing the opportunity, but more so that she caused a rift in the family. Like that.
More so that they're banging on her door and she has to live somewhere else temporarily.
Yeah, because they were so. I mean,
yeah,
she changed their whole life.
It's definitely devastating.
Like, yeah, that boundary crossed, which is the whole point of this episode today. So now that we've talked a little bit about those internet scenarios, why don't we just talk a little bit about the boundaries or dynamics that we deal with and maybe some that we've set up or haven't set up, at least consciously.
Yeah, I was actually sitting here thinking about like how have I consciously set boundaries, and do I consciously set boundaries?
I'm gonna guess a way you set boundaries. And
Go for it.
If I'm wrong, you just leave.
I just leave.
Like you'll just remove yourself from the situation if you don't want to engage in it.
Okay. That's true.
Yeah, I don't mean leave like she's like we're in the middle of a conversation.
I literally just stopped talking.
She just, like, walks out the door because she doesn't like what somebody said. But I mean, if she feels like she's reached a point where she said what she needed to say, she feels like she's heard what the other person has to say, and if it feels like it's going in circles or continuing, Taylor's like, oh, okay.
I literally just either let them keep talking to themselves. That's true. Which I don't know if I guess that's setting a boundary. It is. Because, it's
you
like,
do it because you don't want to go back and forth.
Arguing is not for me. Not, I don't know. I guess I'll have a heated debate, maybe. Not even heated. I'll have a debate. But once it becomes a heated conversation or a point where you're just repeating yourself, no.
I think once you felt like the other person is speaking to be right and not speaking to share their point, you've checked out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I will pick up my phone and scroll in your face, which is probably rude, but I do.
Probably.
But it's like, if I've already said like, okay, I heard you. And if there's nothing you want me to do from me hearing you, but to hear you, and I've already addressed it, like, yeah.
Right. I'm just naming that's one way you set boundaries. Because we were talking about the difference between boundary and controlling, right? A boundary is doing what's in your control versus like telling people how to act or do.
Right. Because I guess technically I could be like, I need you to shut up. Stop talking to me. I got your point.
Right.
Awesome.
Instead, you control what you can control, which is where you put your attention or where you put yourself entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true.
So I would say that's one you've practiced with your sister and family.
A lot.
If we are thinking about the categories, because we have a few categories. We have sister, family, friendship, and partners. So
how would you say you set your boundary? Do you set boundaries with your family?
I believe I have boundaries with my family. I think I'm not as sure of my boundaries as maybe you are in some ways. And by that I mean to the point of like you found a mechanism that works, even if it's not always your favorite, to just leave the conversation or to like end the conversation. It works for you, even if it doesn't always work for the other person. I can talk ad nauseum, so I think when it comes to like somebody causing me harm or doing me hurt, I'll just end up talking about it a lot, and it's not always the most helpful. And so sometimes I'd rather just not communicate about it, or just let you think you've won, even though I know I have my own feelings about it.
Is that setting a boundary? You feel like that's setting a boundary?
No.
Okay.
I just said I don't know that I.
Oh, you're saying that you don't.
I don't know that I know. I don't know that I know what I'm setting boundaries for. And I think maybe in adulthood, and especially after moving, well, I would say moving out from living with mom. No, I don't know. I don't know what I need boundaries from. I don't know.
Well, I think it goes back. I don't know. I think there's things that I don't know. I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, I'm like,
family wise, if there's boundaries. Maybe a lot of our family members just respect our boundaries, and maybe that's why we can't answer that question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there are conversations like in a different episode you asked me about when I lost my virginity, and like that's a conversation I would feel uncomfortable having. Well, maybe not now.
Oh, so maybe you have like conversation boundaries, like what you're okay talking to your family about.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably the list. Like that's where the boundary would exist, is in what I would have a conversation with you about or not. And that has more to do with what I feel like safe to talk to you about or comfortable, and less to do with me thinking that they won't respect the boundary. It has more to do with like my own discomfort with like not with potentially being perceived as not being perfect. That's what it is.
Do you think your family members think you're perfect?
Oh, no. Oh. No. But I think part of the delusion of perfectionism is this voice that says, if you think you're perfect and people generally tell you you're good at things, you might be perfect at some things. And so if you don't talk about them, then you can maintain that delusion.
Got it.
Like if I was a virgin until I got married,
that you're struggling with things.
Not so much not
people or when you struggle with things. Not that you like. That's what I'm hearing. Like you're okay, or things that would make you vulnerable.
Yeah, I'm okay with people not knowing those things, particularly my mom, I guess.
Or I would say probably adults. I know that we're adults, but like
adults, the adult generation. Like I would say with my peers or people I consider peers, I'm kind of an open book. But to your point, yes, when it came to older adults in the family, I would say that, yeah, that's accurate.
Well, I that made me think about one other one that's family related, I guess. Okay, timing. I think a lot of people in our family don't know what I believe in.
What do you mean?
Probably you too. Just in terms of like my spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs.
Well, yeah, because we don't talk about them.
Yeah, but I think it's assumed, right? Based on what everyone else believes in our family. And I think that that's a boundary that I've drawn to like protect it for myself.
Well, I think that's the same thing I was saying about the vulnerability piece.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay.
I was saying like you've just sparked like, oh, that's another boundary that's family related, because I have no problem having those conversations with my friends. But with my family, not necessarily.
Yeah, I think anything that I think my family member, and it's particular to, I think it's anyone who I want to respect me, actually. Anyone who I want to respect me, I will be mindful of how vulnerable I get, because I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's because we don't ever see them be vulnerable. Not not really.
Yeah. I guess I wasn't displayed a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, because Brandon said like the other day, you always just act so tough. And I was like, do I? I think I just act regular. And he's like, no, it's always so tough. And I don't think that I'm doing it deliberately. But if I like think about the women around us or the people that we grew up with, I would say that that's generally true. That I wouldn't describe them as like soft people.
No. And I mean, Vashon, I wouldn't say he ever really described me as tough. He comes from a family of a lot of women, and I would say they're tougher than me. And I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, no.
And so, but there were things that he was like, I didn't realize that would make you cry, or like,
oh no,
those sort of things make you like that. You know, so
you actually get bothered. What? Your feelings get hurt?
Yeah, like, and I think we're both opinionated, so it's not like we don't express our thoughts about things.
We don't express our emotions.
Yeah.
Well, I think you do.
I do.
I'm like, what? She's always crying.
But I would,
which is not a problem. Everybody should cry.
But I would also say that that's not that public. Like, no, yeah. I think it's become more public as of late. But I would say, if I were to tell people who knew me that, like, oh yeah, I was crying all last week, they'd be like, what the fuck?
What's wrong? Life's great.
Well, and like, I wouldn't have known that. I saw you all last week.
Yeah.
So I just think, to your point about the women in our family, they just kind of moved.
But I think that also speaks to the boundaries that we maybe draw in like professional settings, because I think you're referring to those people. I would say, do your friends know that you cried?
Yeah.
So I think that's like a professional side of things that people wouldn't notice that.
But it took energy for me to tell them. Like, it takes energy to not lie when people are like, how's it going? You know, because it's very easy to say fine.
Yeah.
And then you keep moving, because that's the answer we're trained to hear and move on for. To your point about small talk, you said you don't like small talk.
I hate it. I guess, okay, that's our family side of boundaries, but do you feel like you set boundaries with your friends?
At this point, I don't have a lot of new friends. And so
the boundaries came already.
Yeah, I was like, the boundaries are kind of there. I think something unspoken that could be interesting to talk about is just like, at least with my gymnastics friends, of the core of us who still are like the group of us. We were just talking a couple days ago on FaceTime, and I realized like we tell each other a lot of things about our marital lives, and it hasn't gotten too deep to where like, okay, now you're really telling things outside of your house. But I never thought about like, have we talked about how much of this we share? Like, sure, I could tell, like, Spinner tells me this thing about her relationship. Can I tell Taylor about that in a casual conversation? Because like, I have a relationship with Taylor and we bond over things.
But I would think no, right?
But we never discussed it, to the point about boundaries. Like, how we're assuming that, and that's because we have years of friendship. We're assuming that these things stay between us.
But I feel like that's just like a friendship, like, you know. And
but I mean, how do you know?
But I get it, because I will say, when I'm on the phone with some friends, they're like making sure they say, don't tell anybody this. If like it's something that they would really care that I told, versus most other things that they talk about. But to me, I'm like, when I answer the phone, I'm imagining that the most of the phone call is, don't tell anybody this, right? At least that's just how I think about it. Yeah, that's just how I think about when I enter the phone call. But then it also makes me think like, okay, so if I don't tell you, don't tell me this, or don't tell anyone this, that everything I've shared over this phone call is like free reign. I think that's worth
which I don't think that this person
checking into, or these people are like that. I don't think that the things are free reign, but now saying it here now, it's like, maybe it is. I know one friendship boundary that I had to learn to draw in the last couple of years is not answering the phone when I'm not wanting to talk. And I go back and forth on whether that's a good boundary or a bad boundary, because I do feel like I want my friends to feel like they can reach out to me when they, like, if I'm on their mind. But then also, sometimes I'm on your mind, but I don't want to be. No, it's not. I don't want to be, because I appreciate you calling and I want to talk to you, but just not right now.
I don't have space right now.
But that was hard for me. I used to feel guilty when I didn't answer, and so then I would sit there and think about like for like 30, 40 minutes that I could have just been talking to them. That now I gotta call them back or whatever the case may be, and I just go back and forth. I don't know, between I want to talk to my friends all the time or I don't want to talk to anyone for months, and I think that's like doesn't create good relationships, because I think maybe it puts us in a little bit of limbo. Because everybody wants to feel secure, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so, like, if you go from talking to me all the time to then ghosting me.
Yeah, ghosting. I'm not
intentionally ghosting, right? But, like, if we're both just not talking to each other, or you reach out, and sometimes I'll read a message and be like, okay, I'm going to reply to that in like 2 hours. And then I forget about it completely. And then the next day comes around, and I'm like, oh, shoot, I forgot about that message. And now it's too late to respond. And then I turn into this whole spiral. Anyway.
I think we probably just don't talk about it as much as we could, and that's part of why we assume so much guilt when we don't answer a phone call or reply to a text in a certain number of hours. I think, was it in this episode or some episode, I mentioned I have a friend my roommate from college, we agreed to try to see each other bi-quarterly, twice a year. I think they're just different types of friendships, and that's okay too. Mm-hmm. And so just knowing I have a friend that's for this, I have a group of friends that's for that, I'm learning to be okay with that, because I think I've always had compartmentalized friends, and I always felt like I never quite had a group,
a person
I don't feel like I had a person or a group. I feel a little mean like that saying that. I have a lot of good friends, mm-hmm. and I think I have individuals who I've built connections with, but we are not day-to-day best friends. Like, right. My husband is my day-to-day best friend. Yeah. And
so I feel like I had day-to-day friends,
mm-hmm.
and like in this new season of life, I've lost my day-to-day friends, which is, I don't know if I'm upset about it or not. I think that's where my guilt is now. Like,
is it just like people moved away, schedules
changed? I don't even know sometimes. Like, do we both just decide, like, we're good? Like, I don't know.
I think it's one of those cliche, like, what's understood doesn't have to be explained. If you said you needed something, I'd be there in a heartbeat, mm-hmm. and it is what it is. Like, the love is always there, even if we're not. Like, I feel that way about some of my college teammates. Like, I don't talk to any of them, really. A couple of them on occasion. A couple were at the wedding, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't, like, need to talk to each other every day. But if Cassie called me and said, hey, can you come to Stockton right now? I need whoop-de-whoop. Or Maddie called me and said, I need you to come. I'd be like, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth, like, having those conversations with your friends.
Mm.
Like, what does friendship look like to you? Or
now.
Our friendship look
mm-hmm.
like? And whether that's now, or if it's a new friend that you're trying to make, or a relationship that you've had and it's changing because you're changing. I think just acknowledging it is helpful on both sides, because I'm sure you're both thinking, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the assumed guilt. I think we think that the other person is really worried, like, really questioning our choices, our behavior. And it's not bad to, be aware and think about how did my behavior affect the other person, but oftentimes they got so much going on. They would love to see you. They'd love to talk to you more.
Maybe they're sitting over there, waiting for you to call too. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, like I think about Chanel. Chanel calls me all the time, and I call her back most of the time, but not
mm-hmm.
all the time. And I feel bad. But sometimes I just never like talking on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Even pre-pandemic, I was not a phone person. I got better once we had to do all the Skyping and Zooming and stuff. But like, she's a phone person. Some people are also just phone people. And
but I think
in-person people. Or
like, sorry.
Go ahead.
See, this is an interruption thing. But I think it's, if you have those conversations about what your boundaries are, because I think some people don't appreciate when you disappear off the,
Yeah.
So if that's a boundary for you, how do you acknowledge, like, okay, Chanel's going to appreciate my phone call within the next 3 days, and if I don't do it after that, that's, like, a problem.
I don't know.
I know she doesn't think that way. But
yeah, I was going to say, we've been friends since I was 11, so I think it's hard. I think it's probably more true of newer friendships than people who I grew up with.
No, yeah. I'm just saying in general. But I don't know if that's true. Because, like, me and Simone have had conversations about that. Mm-hmm. We've been friends since I was 13. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it depends on the person, right? I guess it's recognizing that each person is going to show up differently, and each relationship is different. And just because everybody's your friend doesn't mean that you show up for that friend in the same way. Yeah. Or that their boundaries are the same as your other friend.
Yeah, very true.
I guess
we had one more dynamic to get to.
Oh, partners. Do you have any boundaries in your relationship? Or maybe we think about it in the other way of like boundaries that keep protected.
Yeah, we could think about it that way. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's like the obvious basic ones, right? Like, we're married, so we're in a monogamous, committed relationship.
I hope so.
I know so. There's, I guess, mostly around communication. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And making space for communication. So that's like, you laughed at me when I told you we have these weekly check-ins or whatever.
I didn't laugh. I mean, I would like that to have those too. I wasn't laughing. You were like, I can't do this thing on that day because of our weekly check-in.
Because that's a boundary I have.
Which
like,
is
to protect
fine.
our relationship,
Yeah.
is that we agreed that we do these check-ins once or twice a week, but we like try to for sure hold Sundays. So like, I gotta keep that boundary with other people in order to, maintain what we established.
You got it.
Yeah, I would say like being honest is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think that's our biggest thing right now. We're having a fight over, I have these party cups for my birthday that I'm gonna keep because they're cute. And I have a boundary that I've drawn with him not to use them. And every day I find one in the trash can. And
oh, they're like plastic cups,
yeah.
like throwaway cups?
Yeah. But they're nice. They're like...
And you just want to save them for the next
For who knows? He's
party.
like, I could buy you more. And I said, okay, but my boundary was that I want these cups that I purchased because I want to keep these. And he's like, are you serious?
And you're like, yes, I am.
And yeah, but he's like, well, it's silly. And so he continues to use the cup.
Brandon, you're crossing a boundary.
Yeah, he's crossing one of my boundaries, but obviously it's like, it's cups, right?
Yeah.
But, so I guess you can ask myself if it's a boundary or control. And at this point, I feel like it's kind of just petty because it's like, I've just asked you so many times and you're still using them. So that's, anyway.
Sure.
But like full circle wise, in terms of other boundaries, I think honesty and all of that stuff is true. And then I think what you spoke to about like not telling everyone everything that's going on. Because I think people influence you more than you know. I think I would get influenced a lot. And I think also like the way I would talk at the start of the relationship versus how I feel now is different. But because of what I used to be so willing to like share, I think it like could skew people's perceptions.
Well, yeah, and I mean, your friend is your friend. They're not Brandon's friend. So you tell them any slight, whether it's about cups
It's
or
about cups, right.
whether it's about cups or something more serious, they're gonna hold on to that way differently and not have any of the other in between things that have, worked to strengthen the relationship and not just the things that annoy you.
Right. Which I think now at this point I just talk about neither, which is I don't know why that is.
I'm particular about who I talk to it with. So like my 3 gym girls who are all in the same stage of life, all doing the same thing, all got married within, like we can talk about these things because it's all very fresh for all of us together.
I would say I'd probably tell Brittany most of the things because I can just catastrophize with her and she's like, no, you're great. Life is great.
But there's a person for everything. So you just gotta be mindful of who you share with, not doing too much trauma dumping and just like having a friend who you only talk to when you want to vent.
No, yeah. She's not that.
No, I know,
yeah,
I know.
But I hear you. Yeah. You don't want people to see.
So I think the last piece is just on accepting boundaries, because we talked about where boundaries might show up, how they looked for us and our dynamics, but I think and we named the difference between controlling versus setting boundaries, but how do you accept boundaries?
I think the best way is just when someone's letting you know that you are encroaching upon their boundaries to listen and ask how you can do things differently. Because none of us are perfect, right? So I don't think it's real to think like I'm just always accepting everyone's boundaries. But when I think allowing grace, and that's like on both sides, is the only way that accepting boundaries is going to work. But also, like, I don't know, how do I think overall, I think accepting boundaries is being like open to feedback. So like if you're doing something that someone else doesn't appreciate or wants to be different, and it doesn't impact you to do it differently, then you should.
Yeah. And people miss that. And that's something I think I learned in marriage and in moving in with Vashon, was that there are some things that he'll want a certain way just because he does. Right. And there are certain things I want a way just because I do. And if it's not going to harm me, or like, I actually go specifically with harm, because there are many things that I will go out of my way to do that I don't necessarily want to do, but I do it because I love him and I know it will make him happy, or like it's not that deep for me to whatever the thing is, not use the cups, whatever. Right. But I lost where I was going.
No, I mean I think that is the whole point. If it's not going to negatively impact you to do that thing, then you should at least put in the effort to do that thing.
Yeah, I almost view it as like kindness.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Yeah, and I would say accepting boundaries can be, I think, challenging in all of these spaces, because I don't think people's intentions are always to hurt the other person when they're not accepting the boundaries. Sometimes it could really be that they're like trying to push them out of their comfort zone, or helping them to feel better about a circumstance, or to say, hey, I'll buy you more cups, it's not that deep, right?
Or I'll take you to get your skincare or go shopping, like the sisters who are calling each other ugly and
right, like right. My boundaries are like the pretty privilege. Well, I'll help you with your gym routine if you're so worried about your body.
Yeah.
But yeah, all those things. Now for the girl in the wedding, I don't know about those boundaries. I would be staying my booty home, but I think
Sorry,
in that instance, the older sister needs to accept the younger's boundary because she's wrong. But yeah, I think generally we just have to really think about whether the other person's perspective is being considered, I guess.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we all want things our way. And if everybody operates that way, we're all going to lose.
Right.
So compromise is the name of the game, but boundaries is what makes you stay safe.
For sure. Comfortable and happy.
Yes. So I think that was all we had for today in talking about boundaries, right?
Yeah. Think about the boundaries that you set up in your life. Do you do them intentionally, or do they kind of happen naturally? And where might you benefit from having some more intentional boundaries? And yeah, I think it's a good conversation to have. Maybe we could consider if there's any boundaries either of us has that we don't necessarily acknowledge.
Yeah. And one big place I think we hear millennials talk about boundaries a lot, which we didn't touch on today, but we could in a future episode if y'all want to hear it, is at work.
Ooh, I love a boundary at work. We'll get into it one day.
Cause I'm quick to settle.
The new person that I work with, I love her. She literally says, actually, I don't think that's in my job description. Or, whose role is that? Because I don't think that's my role. We could look into whose role that is, but I mean, she doesn't say it exactly.
But that's the energy, and I love that. I move at work kind of similar, which is why folks think certain things. But it gets the job done. Okay, I think that's it.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye.